A few weeks ago, I went to Las Vegas to attend the world's largest Warhammer tournament. A 1,000-player Warhammer 40k tournament, 400 players in the Age of Sigmar tournament, plus team tournaments and tons of smaller tournaments for a wide variety of games, all taking place over the long weekend. I thought I knew what I was getting into. Boy, was I wrong. I left the sub-zero temperatures of Minnesota, hopped on a plane, and headed for those bright lights in the desert. My destination? The Rio Hotel and Casino, home to the Las Vegas Open and the world's largest Warhammer 40k tournament. Now I know what you're saying, John, I didn't know that you played in Warhammer tournaments. No, I do not. So why go? Well, that's actually a pretty good question. I went because LVO is trying to build up a stronger contingent of hobby offerings for their event. So, you just gotta be the change you want to see in the world. My acquaintance, Scott the Miniature Maniac, and I taught a 2-day, 8 hours per day painting class on Introduction to Display Level Painting. Now, I know that may seem like a grueling weekend, 16 hours of learning display level painting. That's because it is. Should anyone really paint that much over a 2-day span? Probably not healthy. Unless you're in your hotel room rushing to get your army painted with 3 globby colors so you can play in the tournament the next day. But these students, I guess we'll call them, they were all about it. Look at them smiling and paying attention to Scott saying some bullshit. They actually wanted to get better at painting. And they were actually quite the pleasant group of people, both to Scott and I as well as each other. They shared all sorts of information about their pets and their medical conditions. The kinds of things you really shouldn't share with strangers. Check out how excited they were to listen to Scott talk about how he painted a model with Photoshop.
Video where he was coming up with schemes as well, and he colored on printout of that with crayons. I did that too with colored pencils some time ago. That is definitely a legit thing to do if you're not interested in using Photoshop.
Which technically isn't actually painting, but whatever. We had 22 students stuck in a room for 2 full days in a city known for frivolity, and none of them came in hungover or complaining about how they had to take out a 3rd mortgage on their house to pay off their gambling debt. They seemed really determined to learn and have a good time, but really I was most impressed with their self-control in Sin City. Each of them came with all of their painting gear at the ready, which really kind of put a lot of pressure on me, like I was supposed to know what I was doing. We hadn't taught this class since before COVID hit, which by my calculations is at least 7 or 8 years. Luckily, we had our sweet PowerPoint slides we saved on Microsoft Office 98, so we had that to lean on. To keep the students from going cross-eyed from all the painting, we also split up the class into teams and forced them to compete against each other in various feats of strength. I found this forces students to always be looking out of the corner of their eyes, never sure where the next strike will come, which technically counts as eye exercises, and no one left cross-eyed, so mission accomplished. Most of our students weren't gamers at all. Many had never been to LVO before because it's known as a gaming tournament event more than a miniature-focused convention. I also talked to a lot of students that were taking classes from other amazing painters that were teaching as well, and I heard the same thing. I also asked those students other important questions, like why they weren't taking my class instead, and that wasn't very considerate of my feelings, and I hope that they would make wiser decisions in the future. So, are gaming conventions like LVO truly segregated? You have to choose painter or gamer, and your experience is entirely different based on what you choose. We're going to get to the bottom of that shortly, but this is just a little bit of foreshadowing, which I hear is a very strong narrative storytelling technique. Regardless of whether they were gamers, painters, or somewhere in between, LVO offered something that every good convention had. A big vendor hall, so we can spend money we don't have on nerdy shit we don't need. Whenever I had a free moment, I stood right next to the register at the Monument Hobbies booth and made sure that every customer bought my paint set. In case you didn't know, staring at someone directly in the eye, never blinking, and saying, "Buy it, buy it, buy it, buy it, buy it," usually works. What did I buy? Well, per usual, I didn't spend as much time in the vendor hall as I wish I would have. Pro tip, if you're going to a gaming convention, make sure you make at least 2 or 3 full loops around the entire vendor hall, because every time you make another pass, you're going to see something cool you didn't catch last time. But I did pick up these sweet matching mugs made out of bull horns for my wife and I. Perfect for a tall glass of mead. Do we drink mead? I also got this handmade leather-bound book for my daughter. Nothing makes a kid happier than when they ask you what you brought them back from your trip and you give them a book. Now, I don't know about you, but I like to have my surroundings mirror my mood while I'm painting. And lucky for us, today's sponsor, Displate. It's got us covered. Why use dumpy old posters or overpriced framed art when you can use one-of-a-kind metal posters with over 1 million designs? Whether you want to hang unique premium designs from over 40,000 artists or branded designs from the nerd stuff you love the most, like Dungeons and Dragons, Displate has you covered. Their unique magnet mounting system is super easy to set up in just a few minutes, and you won't need to put any holes in your wall or worry about hanging a crooked picture. And the best part is, by using my link down in the video description below, you can save up to 33% off your total order, so you too can cover your wall in memes. So open that link in another tab and come back to check it out after you're done watching today's video. As far as Las Vegas goes, for a convention location, it has its pros and cons. The Rio is massive, if not a fair bit outdated, and every surface smells like seeped-in cigarette smoke that reminds you of the late 80s. There were tons of restaurants located right in the Rio, and at any given time, over half of them were closed. But at least there was a lot of other options besides the usual convention $11 hot dog. There is something to be said about never having to leave the facilities and to have enough event space to put on multiple massive tournaments of this size without feeling like you're all squished in. Which brings us to the tournaments themselves, but more specifically, the players of those tournaments. Now, I've not went out of my way to talk to a bunch of tournament players at an event before, so I made that a priority this time. And with 1,040K players and 400 Age of Sigmar players, it was a lot of talking. It didn't take me long to come to the harsh reality that I had an unconscious bias towards tournament players. Look, I didn't think that they really cared all that much for the hobby and painting side of the game. I just thought they were rushing through that part to get to the game instead. And I was completely wrong in that. While a majority of the tournament players I talked to considered themselves players first, almost every one of them wanted to share a new painting technique they tried on the army they brought, where they got inspiration for their color scheme, and how much they've learned from watching painting tutorials on YouTube. This made me feel pretty shitty, to be honest. I was subconsciously putting people into silos, little boxes where they had to live, and that's not the benefit of a game like this, that you can live anywhere on this spectrum. And that spectrum is so wide. We can all live on it at different points, and we can move amongst it freely. You can start loving to paint models and gradually grow into playing the game, even at a competitive level, or vice versa. I don't know why I was so narrow-minded about this. Hell, I love to paint and play the games myself. I guess I just thought that tournament players were something so much different, and they weren't at all like us. But quite frankly, we are all us. And I was so glad to be able to talk to so many LVO tournament players to help realize my misconceptions. One thing we all need to realize is that we're in this together. We all love some aspect of this miniature hobby, and that we all have much more in common than we have that divides us. And with an open mind, we can appreciate each other and where we're each at our hobby journey even more. For me, I'm naturally a pretty competitive person, but I've never really thought about entering a Warhammer tournament. And after a conversation with my new friend Charles here, I think I might have to give that a second thought.
Charles, what'd you play this weekend?
I played Age of Sigmar, and I brought my tree elves with me.
Yeah, how'd you do?
I went 3-2.
Okay, did you have a good time?
Always. Always have a good time when I come to Vegas.
All right, so when you go to an event like this, and you're driving home, back from the airport, what's the thing that sticks in your mind?
My losses. I always contemplate my losses, but the reason why, it actually makes you a better player. Because the only way you get good is by losing.
Yeah.
So don't always dwell on your losses, learn from your losses, and you'll always do great.
And you come back every year, right?
Every year.
All right, what brings you back to Warhammer every year?
Probably about half of these guys and gals that I actually meet here. I enjoy the camaraderie, all this shit talking.
Yeah.
All in all, my first LVO experience was a pretty amazing one. I got to meet a lot of passionate staff and volunteers that helped make the Las Vegas Open a reality. And even though I'd never met any of them before, they felt like old friends that share the love of miniature wargaming. We talked painting, cracked jokes, gave each other shit, and we watched some pretty epic games of Warhammer. So if you want to hang out with some fellow mini painters, play some games, maybe play in a tournament, make some new friends, buy some nerdy stuff you didn't know you needed, take a miniature painting class by amazing artists, or enter a miniature painting competition that has a place for you whether you're a new painter or a seasoned veteran, I can honestly recommend hitting up Las Vegas Open next January 2024. It'll be a good time. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. I entered a miniature in the painting competition as well. I brought my grotesque that I brought to Golden Demon last year to see what kind of feedback I could get from the judges. I got a silver medal in the Masters category, so it felt good to end the convention on that note. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I know I've said it a dozen times before, and I'll say it 100 more. Find your way to a miniature painting and gaming convention. It could be a big one like Adepticon, Las Vegas Open, or Nova, or a smaller one in your area. You're going to meet new friends, you're going to get excited about different areas of the hobby, and you're going to come home more excited than ever to paint your next project. By and large, our miniature community is a positive one, and it's good for us to remind each other that we're in this together and we're on the same side, especially as negative as the internet and the media can be sometimes. I appreciate each of you for being in this hobby with me, for us having a connection even thousands of miles apart. Your support here on YouTube as well as on my Patreon really shows me how amazing each and every one of you are. Now, I'm going to see you back here again real soon, but make sure sometime between now and then you find time in your day to slay the gray. Should anyone really paint that much? I don't know. A goodie you didn't know was there. Fuck me. And you'll want to get back to that next